The Honourable Minister of Industry.
Government never talks down our workers, never talks down our economy, never talks down our industries. And we are there to create jobs while we be protecting a lot of jobs. Of course, I hear everything that is happening in the auto sector. That's why we've been there for Oda, for Honda, for Toyota, for Stellantis, for Ford, and for GM. And we've put a remission system in place to make sure that they would protect jobs. Meanwhile, I must say to my honourable colleague that Canada will be the second best country in the G20 for doing business, according to the Economic Intelligence Unit. And among the G7, Canada is ranked third with respect to ease of starting a business.
The honourable member for Calgary, Signal Hill.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister promised Canadians that he would negotiate a win with Donald Trump by July 21st. That was months ago, and Canadians are worse off than we were before. The fastest shrinking economy, the second highest unemployment rate in the G7. All the while, the Prime Minister jetted around the globe. In Calgary, Imperial Oil is cutting 900 jobs. This is a direct result of 10 years of Liberal anti-energy law and policy. Canadians are losing jobs. Is it because of the Prime Minister's failed jet-set diplomacy, or is job killing?
Yeah, the Honourable Minister of Industry.
Mr. Speaker, this government has a true plan to build one Canadian economy. And when it comes to building one economy, we've made sure that we would have important national major projects. And we've announced them in the energy sector, including in LNG. And of course, he should ask the Premier of Alberta what she thinks about that. The other thing also I would like to say is that the GDP is actually growing. And look at the last numbers in July. And when you look at also what is happening in the country, wages are increasing. And indeed, when you saw 3.3% of growing wages across the country.
Gang, what's up? Aaron here, Canadian Looney. This is a big one, guys. Like, Melanie Joly will agree she's a twit. Like, whatever the problem is, there's a couple, maybe. Prime Minister Mark Carney is going to give the Minister of Industry this much power and control. We're going to have MP Matt Strauss break it down. This is unbelievable. This is why you need to subscribe to this channel. Not many people are catching this one. It's nuts.
Hey, that's something everyone
Honourable
can
Member for
enjoy.
Kitchener South, Hespeler.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And may I begin by also thanking my learned friend from Haldeman, Norfolk, for that terrific speech. She's a very tough act to follow. Mr. Speaker, when I read this bill for the first time, my jaw hit the floor. As I had previously discussed in this House, my motivation for signing up to become a politician was the violation of basic charter rights that the Liberals perpetrated in the last Parliament. And even with that background in mind, I had hoped that they perhaps had been chastened and they would not try so hard to claim onto themselves powers explicitly forbidden by our Constitution in this Parliament. But I was wrong. And before I start talking about this bill today, let me just say, Mr. Speaker, it has been shocking to listen to Liberals claim to defend charter rights when they themselves violated Section 2 and Section 8 of our Charter when they imposed the Emergencies Act, and that was determined by Justice Mosley of the Federal Court. All the Liberal members in the last Parliament voted to do that, and I do not want to hear any more about defending charter rights from any such member who has not apologized for that violation. Now on to the present bill. I am concerned, as I say, by the following sections. 15.1 and 15.2 give the Minister the unprecedented, incredible power to kick any private Canadian citizen off the internet, to cut off their phone line, to turn off their cell phone. That is the plain language summary, but I will quote now the bill in its legalese. If there is reasonable grounds to believe that it is necessary to do so to secure the Canadian telecommunication system against any threat, the Minister may prohibit a telecommunication service provider from providing any service to the specified person. Now, perhaps this might make sense to do in an extreme circumstance if a person is trying to cause our satellites to crash or to jam military radar. But this section does not use language about extreme threats of physical damage or threats to national security. It says any threat. And as far as I can tell, given the Liberals' incautious and bombastic use of terms like misinformation, that being any information they don't like, or existential threat, for instance, the member from Milton called the leader of my party an existential threat to our democracy, which is, of course, bananas. So given their incautious and bombastic use of these phrases, it seems to me that the industry minister could deem any speech she doesn't like any threat. and then kick that person off the internet. This section reaches Chinese Communist Party levels of government overreach, and they should be ashamed of themselves. The bill gets worse, it does not get better, Mr. Speaker. 15.2 Clause 5 gives the minister the ability to make her decision to kick someone off the internet. Secret. So imagine that. You've annoyed the Liberal Party overlords, and they've decided to kick you off the internet and cut your phone line. You can't tell anyone that you've been cut off. I have no idea how this could even possibly be enforced, but imagine being put effectively in a digital gulag, unable to use the phone or the internet or your online banking, and if you tell anyone that this happened, you could go to physical jail. I do not doubt that the Liberals will stand and say that I'm being somehow outlandish in my interpretation of this. I am not. It is there in black and white. Let me quote it for them. It seems like they haven't read it. 15.2 Clause 5. An order made under subsection 1 or 2 may include a provision prohibiting the disclosure of its existence, or some or all of its contents, by any person. And if you aren't inclined to believe me, please just Google it. Bill C-8, Canadian Constitution Foundation. There you will find October 1st, 2025 publication where their expert lawyers corroborate my concerns. Mr. Speaker, I am sorry to say the bill continues to get worse. It does not get better. Section 15.4 says the minister may require any person to provide within any time any information that would help her make a decision under 15.1 or 15.2. So it seems to me that if this legislation passes in its current unamended form, the Minister of Industry could wake up one morning, decide that you or any other private citizen, maybe, possibly, she's not quite sure, could be some sort of threat to our telecommunication system, with no warrant, no trial, no automatic judicial review, she could compel Rogers or TELUS to give her that citizen's address book, or their internet search history, or their browser history. This is unreasonable, and it is shocking. This is the Liberal Party under their new Prime Minister. Meet the new boss, same as the old boss. In my first speech to this House, I beseeched the new Prime Minister to discard this darkness and turn towards the light. By reintroducing this Trudeau legislation, he has failed to make the turn. Mr. Speaker, it is not just me raising these concerns. They tried to ram this bill through the last Parliament. Multiple civil society groups wrote an open letter to former Minister Marco Mendocino alerting him to these problems. Signatories to that letter include the Canadian Civil Liberties Association, the Canadian Constitution Foundation, the International Civil Liberties Monitoring Group, la Ligue des droits et libertés, Open Media, the Privacy and Access Council of Canada. Here is a quote from that letter. Bill C-26 grants the government sweeping new powers not only over vast swaths of the Canadian economy, but also to intrude on the private lives of Canadians. Here is another quote. Time and again, we've seen federal governments try to grant themselves the power to intrude on our private lives in the name of security, and time and again, people in Canada have had to come together to push back. They go on to say that the bill lacks guardrails to constrain abuse, permits unknowable orders to trump public regulation, authorizes the use of secret evidence in court, grants powers without accountability, and lacks justification. That is, it doesn't even fix the cybersecurity problems it purports to solve. Do the Liberals believe that creeping authoritarianism worldwide and on this continent is a problem, or do they not? And if they do, why have they written a bill with such authoritarian provisions? Why have they failed entirely to take the advice of these civil liberty groups? Mr. Speaker, once again, this bill will go to committee. Once again, Conservatives will be called upon to do the Liberals' homework and repair this deeply, deeply flawed bill. The offending provisions that I have described do not make us any safer, Mr. Speaker. The industry minister turning off a private Canadian citizen's cell phone does nothing to stop hackers in Russia, China, and Iran from wreaking havoc on our telecommunications infrastructure. They can't fix the problem because they don't understand the problem. They don't even understand where the problem is coming from. And in the relatively uncommon situation where the threat is indeed coming from a private Canadian citizen in his mother's basement, why would you cut off his Rogers account? Get a warrant, arrest him, have a trial in open court, and put him in jail. It is the Conservatives who care about and understand cybersecurity, Mr. Speaker. Those with even a passing familiarity of the day's news will recall that Conservatives called to ban Huawei from our 5G networks for 3 years before they on the opposite side deigned to take that threat seriously. We will salvage what is good out of this bill, and we're happy to do that work for the good of Canadians. But this cleanup job should not be necessary. If the Liberals would merely live up to their apparently insincere reverence for our charter rights, we wouldn't even need to have this conversation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
That is a lot to take in. So we're going to slide over to China's influence on BC ferries. Quite a story there as well. What is going on? This isn't a coincidence, gang. Not a coincidence by any measure.
Politicians are demanding answers today into how China got the deal to build BC Ferries' new vessels after a leaked report that we first told you about last night showed there was a plan to build the ships locally that governments ignored. For more, let's bring in Rob Shaw at the BC Legislature. Rob, you first outlined this story for us last night based on that leaked report. What has the reaction been today?
Well, Stacey, outrage from the opposition parties, but also the organized labor sector today to learn that Seaspan, the province's largest shipyard, had a proposal to phase in construction of those new BC Ferries ships. Would have generated $1 billion for the economy and 10,000 jobs. It gave the plan to government 2 years ago, and nobody did anything about it. The Conservatives, federally and provincially today, demanding answers both on how the BC government failed to force Ferries to put a premium on local jobs and economic benefit in the tendering process, like the report recommended, and why Ottawa is still offering a $1 billion taxpayer-backed low-interest loan to do business with China rather than using that to create a maritime shipbuilding sector here. In both cases, critics say the government should have followed the proposal in the report to phase in construction of ships 2 to 4 in BC and full construction for another 4 ships after that.
These vessels can be done in part in another country and finished here, or they could all be done here. So this is where Mark Carney and David Eby need to actually sit down and have a serious discussion about shipbuilding in this country and whether or not they're going to live up to their rhetoric, because we have a whole generation of shipbuilders that could benefit from this and the employment that it would offer in British Columbia or throughout the country. We know that we can do this. We had 2 shipyards, both Davie as well as Seaspan, express interest in this. But when the moment they saw the RFP from BC Ferries, they knew the fix was in.
David Eby and this government looked British Columbians in the eyes and completely lied to them, said there was no way. There was a way. They just needed the political will, and they failed British Columbians at a time where we need jobs.
The BC government, which got this report 2 years ago, ignored it and then expressed disappointment when the contract went to China, today said it is reading the report. Here's Mike Farnworth.
I've heard about this report and I'm reviewing that report. Am I disappointed that there's not more, that they aren't being built here? Of course I am. That's also why we want to work with the federal government and the industry to find ways in which we can get ferries built. But the reality is waiting, a phased approach is not what ferry passengers in this province expect or want. They want ferries now. That's what the decision that BC Ferries has made.
The BC Ferry and Marine Workers Union, the BC Building Trades, both out today saying in statements that this proves ferries should and could have built in BC. It was a failure of political leadership to not make that happen. And both saying that BC shipyards never had a chance, though, against low-cost, low human rights records of countries like China. Another twist in the story, this report here had been requested by the House of Commons and their Federal Transportation Committee from BC Ferries, which did not provide it, and the committee now questioning why that was withheld by BC Ferries. Lots continue to happen as a result of this report.
We'll wrap it up right there, gang. Aaron, Canadian Looney, like, share, subscribe, get notified, all those fun things. Come and join us for one of the live shows. They're fun. We've got a really great chat room. That's it. Catch you in the next video. Times are tough in Canada. Time to wake the Liberal voters up to what is really going down. Catch you in the next video.